Most of us are afraid to ask our parents the hardest questions. Not because we don't want the answers, because we don't want them to know we're already imagining a world without them. Here's what I learned. 4 years too late. The hardest questions are also the most loving ones. The ones you are most afraid to ask are the ones your parent has been quietly waiting to be asked, sometimes for decades. And the silence in between is not protecting either of you. It is just running out the clock. This is Stories of Connection. I'm Miriam. Today I want to share with you 6 conversations every adult daughter eventually wishes she'd had with her aging mother or father. These are not light conversations. They are not casual conversations. They are the ones that, once asked, change the relationship forever. I want to walk you through each one, the exact sentence to say, when to bring it up, where, and what often surfaces when you do, because in my experience, what surfaces is rarely what you expected, and almost always more beautiful than you feared. To make it real, I am going to use 2 people throughout this video. A daughter named Sarah, mid-40s, juggling a job and 2 teenagers. And her mother, Joan, in her late 60s, still living in her own home, still sharp, still waiting. Sarah is a stand-in for so many of you. Joan is a stand-in for so many of your mothers and fathers. Watch what happens when Sarah finally asks. I want to say something carefully before we begin. This is not a video about what is wrong with your relationship with your parent. The premise of these 6 questions is the opposite. The premise is that your relationship is good, that you love each other, that you have already been doing the smaller work, the phone calls, the visits, the questions about her childhood, her favorite recipe, the song she danced to at her wedding. This video is for what comes next. The deeper waters, the conversations that are only possible because the love is already there to hold them. A relationship that is shallow cannot bear these questions. A relationship that is good can. Asking your mother what a good ending looks like to her is not preparing for loss. It is proving the love is strong enough to bear the weight. That is a very different thing. Here is the part I want you to hear. You have less time with the version of her who can answer these questions than your brain is telling you. This is what I call emotional time blindness. Distance shortens the runway. A fading mind shortens the runway. And meanwhile, your brain quietly insists the runway is long. It is not. It has never been. So, 6 conversations, in a specific order, each one slightly heavier than the last, until the final one, which lands soft. Let's begin. The first conversation is about the ending she would choose for herself. Most parents have very specific preferences about how they would like their last chapter to go, where they want to be, who they want with them, what they want to avoid, and almost none of them have ever been asked to say those preferences out loud. They sit there, unspoken, year after year, while the family quietly assumes someone else will figure it out when the time comes. The question is this: what does a good ending look like to you? Don't ask it at a holiday gathering. Don't ask it on a birthday. Don't ask it across a restaurant table where the waiter is about to interrupt. Ask it in a car, on a walk, at the kitchen counter while you are both rinsing dishes. Side by side, hands busy, no forced eye contact, the car is best. There is something about looking at the road instead of each other that lets a person say the truer thing. Here is what often happens. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late October. Sarah was driving Joan home from a routine doctor's appointment. The light was that low gold light that comes through windshields in autumn. Joan had her hands folded in her lap. Sarah waited until they had been quiet for a few minutes. And then she said it. "Mom, what does a good ending look like to you?" Joan was quiet for a long time. Sarah did not fill the silence. And then Joan said slowly, like she was finding the words for the first time, "Not in a hospital. I do not want a hospital. I want to be in my own bed with the window open if it's spring. I want my sister there if she's still here. And I want the light coming in from the east the way it does in the morning. She had thought about every detail. She had never told a single person. Not Sarah's father, not her doctor, not her sister. Sarah was the first person who ever asked. The transition from this conversation into the next one is small but important. Once you have asked her about the ending, she trusts that you can hear hard things. The next conversation rides on that trust. The second conversation moves from her ending to her beginnings, the parts of her you may not know. Most parents have a small private collection of moments they are quietly proud of. Choices they made before they were anybody's mother. Stands they took, lines they drew. Sometimes those moments cost them something. Often, they have never been told to a child because the child was not yet there to be told. The question is this: is there a choice you made years ago that you still think about with pride that I might not know the full story of? Bring it up at her kitchen table. Mid-afternoon, between meals, when the house is quiet. Bring her a cup of tea. Sit down. Don't lead with a question. Lead with something small first, a memory of your own childhood, a photograph on the wall, and let it open the door. It was a quiet Thursday afternoon. Sarah was at Joan's kitchen table with a cup of tea. The clock on the wall ticked. Joan looked at her hands. And then, when Sarah asked the question, Joan smiled in a way Sarah had not seen before. Joan told her about a job at a bank in her early 30s, before Sarah was born. There was a younger woman who worked there. The boss had been making her uncomfortable for months. Comments, a hand on the back. The younger woman had no power and no language for what was happening to her. Joan walked into the boss's office one morning and told him, calmly, that if he did not stop, she would. He fired Joan that afternoon. Joan walked out. She never told her own husband the real reason. She let everyone think it was a layoff. Sarah sat there, the mother she had grown up with, the quiet one, the one who made dinner, the one who had seemed so passive, had once stood up and lost her job for someone she barely knew. Sarah had been holding a story about who her mother was for 40 years. The story rewrote itself in 5 minutes. After she has shown you a piece of her courage, the next conversation gets quieter. It moves from who she has been to what she is leaving behind. The third conversation is about the objects in her home. This is not the inheritance conversation. This is not about money or property or the will. This is about which specific things in her house carry meaning for her and which do not. Most adult daughters assume the whole house matters. The truth is almost always smaller and more specific. 3 or 4 things. A drawer, a box. The question is this: when the time comes, what do you want me to keep and what do you genuinely not care about? Bring this one up by walking through the house with her. Not a formal sit down. A wandering, room by room thing on a slow Saturday morning when neither of you has anywhere to be. Let her point. Let her pick up the small objects. Let her tell you their stories one at a time. It was a slow Saturday morning in May. Sarah and Joan walked through Joan's bedroom together. Joan moved slowly. She pointed a small ceramic dish on the dresser. I made this in 1978 in a class. It is the only thing I ever made with my hands that I kept. I would like you to have it. A photograph in a silver frame on the wall. That is my grandmother. The only picture I have of her. Keep that one. A small wooden box in the top drawer. My wedding ring is in there. The dress I was married in is folded under it. Those 2 things, please, together. Then Joan looked around the rest of the room. The furniture, the lamps, the stacks of books on the shelves, the closet full of clothes. The rest of it, she said quietly, can go. Truly. None of it is me. Sarah had assumed the entire house was sacred. Joan had been ready for years to let almost all of it go. The weight had never been in the things. The weight had been in 3 small objects and a single sentence about each. The next conversation is the heaviest of the 6. I want you to feel the shift before we step into it. The 4th conversation is the deepest dive in this video. I want you to take a breath before you read the question, because the question itself is heavy. Most parents carry at least one grief that they have not spoken about in decades. Sometimes it is a sibling who died young. Sometimes a baby who did not make it. Sometimes a friend, a parent, a love that ended badly. They have carried it alone, often because they did not want to add weight to your childhood. They have carried it long past the point where anyone is left to talk about it with. The question is this: is there a loss you've carried that I never fully knew about? I want to know the heavy things you've held because I want to help carry them with you. Bring this conversation up in a slow place. A long walk in a familiar neighborhood. The back porch in the evening with the light fading. A long drive on an empty highway. Somewhere with time to spare and no interruption. Do not ask this one in under an hour of clear space. It was a Sunday evening in early summer. Sarah and Joan were sitting on the back porch. The light was leaving the sky slowly. Sarah asked the question gently. Joan was quiet for a long, long time. And then Joan said a name. Daniel. She said the name softly, like she was testing whether her own mouth still remembered how to shape it. Daniel had been her younger brother. He had died at 19 in a car accident the year before Sarah was born. Joan had not said his name out loud in almost 40 years. Her parents had not been able to bear it. Her husband had not known how to hold it, so she had folded the name up and put it away. Sarah did not try to soothe anything away. She did not ask questions. She did not say the things daughters reach for when their mothers cry, "It's okay, it's all right, you don't have to talk about it." She just sat there. She let her mother say his name into the evening air. She let the silence around the name belong. That is what this conversation asks of you. Not solving, not soothing, not even understanding, just listening. While she finally puts down something she has been carrying alone. After the heaviest of the 6, the curve begins to soften. The next conversation moves us from the past she has carried to the future she is afraid of. The 5th conversation is about the specific fear she has about getting older, the one she has been keeping to herself. Adult children often assume their parents are afraid of dying. Most are not. Most are afraid of something more specific, being a burden, losing their dignity, being moved somewhere they did not choose, being forgotten while still alive. The fear is rarely the abstract one. It is almost always a small, exact, named thing. And until you know which one it is, you cannot be useful in helping her face it. The question is this: what scares you most about getting older? Bring this up while you are doing something gentle together. Folding laundry on her couch, sorting through old photographs at the kitchen table, stirring something on the stove. The hands need to be busy. The mouth needs to be free. It was a quiet Sunday morning. Sarah and Joan were folding sheets together in Joan's living room. The radio was on low in the kitchen. Sarah asked the question while shaking out a pillowcase. Joan kept folding for a while before she answered. And then she said it without looking up. I am not afraid of dying. I want you to know that. I am afraid of being moved out of my house. I am afraid of waking up somewhere I did not choose, with people who do not know me, where nobody calls me by my first name. That is what scares me. Not the ending, the middle. Sarah set down the laundry. She turned to face her mother, and she said one sentence very slowly, very carefully, because she meant it. Mom, whatever happens, that will not happen to you. That is the gift of this conversation. Once you know the exact shape of her fear, you can be specific in how you stand against it. Vague reassurance is a wall of fog. Naming the fear, then naming what you will do about it, that is solid ground. There is one more conversation. It is the softest of the 6. It is the one that lets the video and your relationship end on love rather than weight. The 6th conversation is the legacy conversation. It is also the simplest. What does she want her grandchildren, your children, to remember about her after she is gone? Not a biography, not a list of accomplishments, one thing, one sentence. The thing she would most want outlived. The question is this: what do you want me to tell my children about you? Ask this one anywhere. The kitchen counter, the car, the porch, a bench in a park. It does not need a special setting because the answer almost always lands like a small stone dropped in still water, quiet, exact, and impossible to take back. It was a Saturday afternoon in September. Sarah and Joan were sitting on a bench near the pond at the park where Joan used to take Sarah as a child. The leaves were just beginning to turn. Joan had a paper cup of coffee in her hands. Sarah asked the question. Joan thought about it for a minute, and then she answered in one sentence. Tell them I sat with them when they were sick, and I did not look at the clock once. That was it. That was the whole answer. Sarah did not say anything for a long time. She thought about every fever she had had as a little girl, the cool washcloth on her forehead, her mother in the chair next to her bed, reading the same picture book over and over, never once impatient, never once leaving the room until she was sure Sarah was asleep. Sarah had not noticed at the time, because children do not notice that kind of love. They only feel its absence later, when they understand what it cost the person who gave it. Joan had given Sarah hours of her life. She had given them quietly, without keeping score, and the only thing she wanted preserved across one more generation was that one specific way she had loved. That is the answer this conversation gives you, not a speech, not a summary. One small, devastatingly specific thing she did that she wants her grandchildren to know about. Hold on to it. Tell your children. Tell them tonight. These 6 conversations have one thing in common. They are not about you. They are not about the relationship. They are about her, the woman she is, the woman she has been, the woman she is still becoming in her last chapter, often more honestly than at any point in her life. When you ask hard questions of someone who already knows you love them, those questions do not damage the relationship. They open it. The relationship was always strong enough to hold them. You were the one who did not yet trust that it was. You are not preparing for loss when you ask. You are proving the love is strong enough to bear the weight. That is the difference. That is the whole difference. That is what I learned 4 years too late. These 6 conversations are the deeper waters. If you have not started yet, the place to begin is shallower water, lighter questions, easier ground, the kind of questions that build the trust these 6 will eventually rest on. I made a free guide. 50 questions to ask the parent or the grandparent in your life, the questions worth asking while you still can. Save the harder 6 on this video for when the weight is right. Start with the 50. The link is in the description. It is free. You can have it on your phone before you finish this video. Use it while you still have her version of yes, the one where she remembers, where she answers, where she leans toward the question instead of away from it. Don't wait. This is Stories of Connection. Stories about family, about time passing faster than we expect, about the questions we still have time to ask. Until then, don't wait.